Hey guys, Mel the Train Tutor back in the studio. I'm back with another Let's Make for you. And in this Let's Make, we're continuing with our modern sort of urban industrial theme, and we're making shipping containers. Okay, now shipping containers are great scatter for modern games. They're big line of sight blockers, they take up a lot of room so they can fill quite a blank area. Yeah, and if you build them on bulk, you can make some awesome setups and even use them for troop placement. Okay, so it really depends what you want to go for. If you want to go for a shipping yard at a dock, you can make a ton of these and make a table out of them yourself. Now, as always, yeah, we're going to go through the basics of how to put them together, and then I'm going to let you run wild with them as I always do. So, should we get cracked on? Come on! So to start our shipping containers, we need a substructure, something to basically build our detail on. Now I'm going to go and make one out of foam board. Now you can make it out of corrugated cardboard, and you can also, if you're lucky, you can find a cardboard box or perhaps a plastic container that fits really well. Fortunately I haven't, and I have got foam board. Now what I've got here is, I have 6 pieces. I have 2.5 inch by 5 inch pieces, I have 2 inch by 5 inch pieces, and I have 2 inch by 2 inch pieces. And the plan is we're going to glue these together, okay, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically build them up like that, okay. And what I should be left with is a box. Now, to glue them together, yeah, what I could do is I could use PVA, and then because it's foam board, I could just pin everything in place so it holds it all in place while the PVA dries. But obviously I'd have to wait for the PVA to dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with a hot glue gun, yeah, because it'll be done quicker, and then we can crack on. Right, so I'll get this done. I'll see you in a sec. So that's a substructure done. It's a little bit rough and ready, yeah, but it's gone together quick, easy, and it's pretty sturdy. Okay, now we need to start detailing. Now we've got something to actually build on. And what I've got here is, straight off, I've got some cereal packet, well, Belvita, okay, just some thick card. You could use plastic card, I'm using thick card, and I'm using the glossy side. Now I have a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch piece there, and that's going to go on one side. Yeah, and then what I've got is the same again, but it's been cut down the middle. And these are going to make our doors. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these together. Okay, and I'm going to glue them together on that, and I could use PVA. I'm actually going to use a little bit of super glue, just it's quicker. Yeah, so I'll get those glued on, and then we need to get the other sides glued on. Okay, I'm going to PVA them and a little bit of super glue just on the edges to attach that to that. Yeah, the PVA will form a good bond, the super glue will grip it really quickly so we can carry on with the tutorial. Now you may turn around and say, well Mel, you've got a glue gun, why aren't you using your glue gun? When you use glue guns, they sort of put gaps in things, okay, unless your glue's really hot, especially with large flat areas. So it's not always the best way to actually get a layer down of something. Quite often if you're laying down cardboard, that sort of stuff, either super glue, spray adhesive or PVA is your option. The volume of hot glue can become problematic, yeah, with getting it to sit flat. So with that in mind, over here I have some yellow corrugated cardboard. Right, these pieces, these are 2.5 inches by 5 inches, so the same as our big pieces. Yeah, and they're going to go and cover those edges, or specifically where I've got these side bits. Okay, because that should give me a nice smooth bottom. Yeah, and a nice clean side. Yeah, and everyone loves smooth bottoms. I do anyway. Right, I'm going to put that one on there, and at the same time I've got 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches for one of these sides, yeah, i.e. the one that doesn't have the doors on. Yeah, so that's going to go there. Okay, now like I said, there's a couple of options for this. You've got PVA, super glue, we can pin them in place with pins. Yeah, it's just a matter of going with whether you're in a rush or whether you're happy just to PVA it down, put some pins on and pick it up in an hour or so. Right, let's get cracked on, eh? So there's our container with all the panels on, and they're all dry now. Yeah, now obviously before I move on very quickly, is this corrugated cardboard. If you're struggling to find this, you can normally find it in craft shops and like toy superstores like Toys R Us and stuff like that. Yeah, if you do struggle finding it, remember at the bottom of chocolate boxes there's often corrugated sort of plastic that you can use as well. So, you know, buy a loved one some chocolates. Yeah, have the strawberry ones and nick the corrugated bit out of the bottom for crafting. Yeah, right, moving on to the side. Yeah, we've done our cardboard where we've glued our two halves onto our single piece and glued them on. You'll notice on that I've left a sort of gap in between the two halves. I haven't pushed them completely up close. The reason for that is I want a gap for where my doors are. Yeah, so that's going to give me a bit of shadow and something I can put a bit of wash in to get the gap between the doors. Now the next thing is we need to start adding the ribbing, the panels on the straps. And for that, what I've got is, I've got a sheet of 1mm plastic card. Now you could use, cardboard for this, tough cardboard. You could, at a push, you could probably use, something like coffee stirrers at a push. Yeah, but cardboard would be fine, but I'm deciding to use plastic card. It's a little bit more precise. Now what I've done is, I've cut some strips. All these strips are 7mm wide, which is about, as I judge it, about right for what I want. Okay, now you'll notice that they're longer than the piece, and this is done on purpose. This long edge, this black one, is exactly 5 inches, but we've got to factor in a couple of millimeters for the top and a couple of millimeters for that ribbon at the bottom. Okay, now the easiest way of doing this is to actually place your piece down like that, come along, hold that there, come in with your clippers, yeah, and then what I'm going to do is, if I just turn it around like that, yeah, and that will give me the perfect length to fit on that, factoring in the extra bit there and the extra bit there. Okay, now the next thing that I need to do is I've got to go round, I've got to glue this one onto here, one onto here, yeah, one onto this side, one onto this side, and then one either side of the top, and then we're ready to do those sides. So that's the next job. And to do that, yeah, I wouldn't recommend I could use hot glue, but I'd have that sort of space of volume issue again. I could use PVA, but PVA doesn't work that well with with plastic card, and so we're falling back to a little bit of super glue. So I'm going to crack on with that. I'm going to get these sides on, and we'll come back when that's done. So those strips are glued on, and as you can see, there's the sides and the top, and if I bring it up, yeah, using plastic card has given us a lovely join. Now the next job is, obviously we've got to do this bit, this bit, this bit, this bit, same on the other side, and then round here. Now I'm going to use the same plastic card for that, but what I'm going to do is, it's very much a matter of, because we know the rough measurements, but it's going to be a couple of millimeters out, it's a matter of actually bringing your piece along and cutting it to fit in every case. Yeah, so line it up between the two pieces where you need it to glue, wherever it needs to go. Yeah, cut it, then glue it into place. So, yeah, so that's the next task. So I'm going to get cracked on with that, and I'll bring it back once all these bits are on. So there we are, that's all the other pieces added, and it is looking rather good. Okay, now I have taken this a step further and I've done the door as well. So if I bring that up, I'll very quickly talk you through it. Okay, these are 3 or 4mm strips. Okay, and I've just glued them on and laid them around just exactly the same. At the same time, I've taken a couple of offcuts and I've just beveled a point on them and glued them down with a bit of glue, gel super glue. And then what I've done is I've got a little bit of this plastic rod, 1mm. Yeah, and I've just cut that off to the required lengths and dropped those in. Now, when it comes to designing your doors and designing your containers in general, there's a ton of designs online. Well, there's a ton of reference pictures. And this is very much like the palette. Yeah, this is just one way of doing them. Yeah, you will know lots of other ways. You will have worked with lots of other ways of doing this sort of stuff. Yeah, so if you've got reference material, build it to your reference material. I've just sort of taken you through the techniques. Right, now the next job we need to do is get this primed, and for that I'm going to spray prime it with a blue. Okay, and then we can paint it up from there. So what I need to do is, yeah, go mask up, glove up, and get it sprayed. I'll bring it back in a sec. So it's all dry now, and doesn't it look brilliant? Yeah, there's a couple of tiny little bits that I missed when I was priming, but they're in the corners and stuff like that, so I know the wash will grab them. Obviously we've got to continue painting this and detailing it up. Looking at it, I'm wondering if 7mm was a bit too thick for these, these sort of border edges. Yeah, maybe 5mm would have been better. But hey ho, I mean, I'm here to make the mistakes so you don't have to, aren't I? Right? So, take it up to the next stage. Now I want to dirty it up and I weather it up a bit. But before I do, a lot of these shipping containers have sort of like, you know, the company logos on. So I want to do that. Okay, now with that in mind, what I've done is, I've got a bit of cereal packet. Yeah. I've used a straight edge to draw myself some guidelines. I've done TTT for TTT shipping. Yeah. Now, if you have a quick nose, if I bring this up, see that little pen mark there? Yeah. That's so I can line it up like that and make sure that those letters are directly, yeah, in the middle of that. Now the next job I need to do is white spray primer. Yeah, I'm not using airbrush, just spray primer. And I'm going to lightly tap across that. I'm not going to try and do it in one hit. I'll do it in a light tap, let that dry, add another tap, probably 3 taps to actually get the full lettering on. Okay, but that should give me my lettering. So that's the next job I've got to do. I've got to sort of take this outside to do it because it's spraying. So I'll be back shortly. So that's our stenciling done, and I've got the TTT on there, but if you can have a look, you can see we've got a little bit of overspray on it. Okay, now you're going to get this in any sort of situation where you're laying a stencil over something that isn't perfectly flat. Yeah, and in this case this is corrugated, so it's picked up a little bit of the overspray. But it's okay. Yeah, if you remember, the reason I use Army Painter primers is because they colour match the paints. Okay, so I can simply go in, yeah, very quickly with some of the actual paint colour. Yeah, and yeah, just to start sharpening that up. Yeah, so that's my next job. I just need to go along these edges and just clean them up a little. Okay, so I better get cracked on, Anna. So there we are, all cleaned up and looking rather nice. Okay, and if I spin it round this way, yeah, that's it on that side. Now don't worry if you make little mistakes like that. Okay, shipping containers, they are heavily chipped and marked and weathered, yeah, so we can hide all our little mistakes, yeah, when we do our sort of chipping and our weathering. Yeah, now as well as sort of putting the letters on there, I spotted I've got some decals. So what I thought was, I just had a quick one on there. Might be a little bit too tiny for this, I'm not sure. Yeah, have a look at what decals you've got when you're putting these together. Yeah, they certainly add to it. Now, the next thing is we need to chip it up and start, because it's a bit blue and clean, isn't it? And what I've got there is I've got a roughly a 50-50 mix of burnt umber, yeah, and black. So I'm going to give this a bit of a mix. And now it's mixed, it leaves me with that lovely dark brown. Now the next job is we need to stipple this and get sort of our chipping effects on that. And for this, I'm using a little bit of sea sponge. Okay? And all I'm going to do is, yeah, get some on my prongs. Yeah. A bit like that, and then I've got a little bit of plasticard here, yeah, just to take off the excess so it doesn't blob. Yeah. And then it's just a simple matter of coming along, yeah, and very lightly tapping it. Yeah, see where we're going with this? Right. I'll crack on with this, I'll do my tapping and that sort of stuff, and I will bring it back once I've chipped it up a bit. So that's our stippling done, and it's really broken it up. Now, it does look a little bit heavy in places, but to be perfectly honest, yeah, compared to what some of the containers I've seen online in my reference pics, it's not that bad. Yeah, now the next thing is obviously, you know, where we've got large areas of chipping, that chipping would have gone down to the bare metal. So what I've started doing, yeah, is if you look, yeah, I've started adding little bits of metal onto it, and it is just a simple matter of a paintbrush, a little bit of dark metallic paint. You really don't want anything super shiny. Yeah, your gunmetals are the sort of ones you want, and then just come along the way you've got the largest blobs, just come in and just add little bits. That's all it needs, just a little bit. Yeah, keep an eye on edges. Yeah, so in the case of like this edge here, what I would do is I'd come along, yeah, and I'd just sort of stroke it across that edge, just where that chipping is. Yeah, and if I bring it up, there we go. Looking gorgeous. So what I've got to do now is just finish off this chipping on a few of these places. Yeah, I've already done it on there, and that's looking nice. And then we're ready to sort of give it a wash and just dirt it up a little bit more. Yeah, so I'll get this chipping done and we'll come back once that's done. Yeah, that's all the metallic detailing done, and it's really starting to come together, but it's still a little bit clean. And what I mean by that is there's no dirt in the corners and that sort of stuff. We've just got wear damage. And now we've got this on, we can go in and we can start really sort of weathering it up. And for that we need to give it a wash. Okay, now to make our wash, we've got our original black and brown mix that we use for doing our chipping. Yeah, and all I'm going to do is very quickly with this brush, scoop it all up off here. Yeah, stick it on here, and then start adding water. I'm just going to water it down. So I've got my wash made up and it's ready to go. And if you notice, I've got it mounted on a bit of foam board. The foam board I used to prime it on. And it's actually on 4 little blobs of blue tack. Now this is important. One, it lets me move it around without actually handling it. But more importantly, when you're doing a wash, what can happen with these sort of things is it will pool underneath and it will stick it to whatever it's sitting on as you wash it. So by raising it off slightly, and just having a 2-3 millimeters, yeah, in fact I think it's only 2, but having 2 millimeters between the base and the actual thing that you wash, it means it's not going to stick to it. I'm not going to get weird pools and stuff like that. So as always with a wash, start where no one's going to see it, just to make sure your strength is fine. Yeah, might be a little bit too strong, this one. Yeah, not sure. Let's water it down a little bit more and then we'll crack on. Yeah, so dead simple. Grab your wash and plaster it on and spread it out. Yeah, make sure you get it in all the corners. Yeah, in all where it needs to be. Yeah, because this is what's going to give you your shadow. Yeah, so if I compare that side to that side, you can see it's already making a difference. Okay, so I'm going to crack on with this. So the wash has gone on and it started to add all the shadows in, and it started to knock it back a bit and dirt it up a little bit more. Yeah, it's looking rather good. Okay, but that's not the only weathering we can do. Now what I've done is I've got us a little bit of that burnt umber there. Yeah, and what I'm going to do is just on my brush, yeah, where it's wet, I'm going to come along and I'm just going to add some streaks. Yeah, and I'm literally just coming down from the top and just adding some streaks in. Adding from where it's a bit rusty. Yeah. Which just starts to break it up a little bit more. So I'm going to go round and add a few more of these in. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this brown. I'm going to mix it a little with our with our wash. And then because the paint's in there, I can specifically paint it in areas and just redefine corners like that. So if I come along here, yeah, I can sort of redefine where it would be excessively dirtier. Yeah. So the next job is for me just to go round the sides, bring out the edges and put some streaks in it. Yeah, so I'll crack on with that now. And there you go, all done. And it is looking rather nice. Now, if you are an armour professionado, and you do a lot of tanks and stuff like that, your weathering is going to be so much better than mine. Yeah, but I've covered all the major techniques, yeah, and all the sort of the basis to actually put this together, okay? So, it's basically, as always, guys, I give you the basics, I show you the way, and, you guys all run with it and absolutely astound me on the Terrainiacs group, yeah? So, I'm looking forward to seeing containers on the Terrainiacs group. Right, should we wrap this up? Yeah, let's just go through the steps. So there you are, it's as simple as that to put shipping containers together. Remember, I've covered the basics, I've taken you through the techniques, but as always, I expect you guys to run with it and create Awesome, beautiful stuff. And if you do, remember to post it on the terrainiacs. Yeah, and if you don't know the terrainiacs, it's our support group. The link is down below. So let's quickly go over what we've done. The first thing was we made our substructure. Yeah, now I made mine out of foam board. You can make it out of corrugated cardboard and hot glue. You can make them out of, in fact, if you're lucky, you can find just the right boxes. Yeah, sort of pre-cut, you know, from certain presents and stuff like that. And I've even seen plastic boxes that work well. And that's going to be your substructure. After that, you need to layer on your corrugation on the side. Now, there are containers without it, but it does make it look better. Now, I use corrugated card. If you haven't got corrugated card, remember, raid those chocolate tubs, because at the bottom you typically get that corrugated sort of plastic stuff, and that's perfect. After that, it's time to add on all your ribbing. Now, you could use card for this. I use plastic card. You could use stirrers and stuff like that, but I'd be a little concerned about the texture, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, so stick with plastic card or stick with cardboard, yeah? Either way, you'll get cracking results. And then it's just a matter of just building up the edges, adding those little details. Now, I do think I went a little thick on my sort of panel strips. I went for 7mm. In hindsight, yeah, I'd suggest you go for about 5mm. That's probably working better, yeah? Learn from my mistakes, guys, you know what I mean? Now, once we've got it all built and all connected, yeah, it was time to start painting up, and with that, spray prime it. Yeah, whenever you're working with cardboard or anything like that, always spray prime it. Okay, you can use acrylics, you can use house paint, but the water content in those paints can really screw up your cardboard, and it can reactivate your PVA. So it's better to get spray primer. Now, I used Army Painter. Now, the reason I used Army Paint was, as you saw, it allows me to touch it up because they're colour matched with the paints, which is really handy for terrain builders, because there's always bits we miss and we always cock up. Yeah. After that, yeah, it was time to put the stencil on. That was just a simple bit of cutting the TTT out of cardboard, applying it, quick little spray, quick little cleanup. Didn't use an airbrush for that, but I still got really good results just out of a spray can. Yeah, then we were on to the sort of chipping and the detailing. I probably went a little bit heavy-handed to start off, guys, to be perfectly honest, but it's the technique that matters. And overall, well, to be perfectly honest, I've seen some of my reference photos, and there's far dirtier shipping containers out there, so I'm not going to beat myself up too much. But as I said in the video, you know, if you're a tank guy or you do a lot of modelling, you know, you're going to knock this out of the park. You're going to blow me away. Yeah, it's something I need to work on, you know, my sort of metal work. And yeah, I've got a load of tanks just over there. Yeah, just waiting to go. So I'm going to have to get stuck into them at some point. But with the weathering, yeah, we got the chipping. Then you've got to go in and selectively using that gunmetal, yeah, just to sort of show where it's really been abrased and that sort of stuff. Then a wash and some streaks and a couple of patches. Remember, you could go in with rust and all sorts. I mean, you could literally go over the top with this, because essentially it is, yeah, model weathering. And we know how crazy that stuff can get. As always, it's down to you. Now, build time, you should be able to build 4 or 5 of these in an evening, yeah, and then have them painted up the next evening, yeah. So, over a weekend, if you're really going to monster it, you should be knocking out, say, you know, 10, 15, maybe 20 of these. Can I do that on a board? It'll look awesome, wouldn't it? Yeah, but the important thing is, I've covered the techniques, I've covered what you've got to look out for, how to do it, and hopefully there's enough information in this video for you to pick it up and run with and, you know, show me something beautiful, guys. Yeah, so, as always, yeah, reaching out to you guys. If you've got any suggestions, if you think I've missed something, if you think I should do it another way, and no doubt it'll be like Palletgate, where there's that many containers and there's that many of you guys who've worked with them, you'll be pointing all sorts of things out. Yeah, I welcome it, guys. So get them down in the comments. If you've got any questions about the techniques or how I've done this or anything, other things you want to consider, in the comments, I always answer my questions. Obviously, like it if you like it, and, you know, share it with people if you think they need to make some containers for your gaming tables. And then finally, guys, as always, yeah, if this is helping your hobby, if you are making terrain from these videos, or they're just a bit of enjoyment in the background while you're painting your models, please consider supporting the channel, yeah? All this is only possible, and these videos is only possible because of the support of a few good guys like you. And so, if you'd like to support the channel, you can either do it in one or two ways. You can jump on PayPal down below and just send a one-off to say, thanks Mel, really love the tutorial, you're helping me loads. Here's a couple of quid, get yourself a pint. Or buy a new can of blue spray paint because you've used it all on your containers. Yeah, or alternatively, if you really like the channel and you want to keep this going and help me grow it and, you know, get more videos out and improve my videos, yeah, you can check out Patreon. Okay, Patreon is, I only ask for $1 a month. You pledge per video, but you can cap the maximum number of videos a month. Yeah, so if you pledge $1 per video for 3 videos, the most you'll ever pay is $3 a month. You have control over that. It's down to you. How much per video, how much how many videos per month. And beyond that, like I say, jump on it up there. And thanks for your support, guys. It really means a lot to me. And in the meantime, get cracking on those containers. More industrial stuff coming, and then we're into the foreground map. It's going to be good. See you soon, guys. All the best. Ta-da.